Also with us now, Joey Jackson, CNN legal analyst, who is also a criminal defense attorney. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. So, a few things here, and you've both taken a look at this video as it came out in this documentary. The filmmaker basically says that this new video shows that the police's intention was to make Brown look bad in the narrative that they put out. And also, the filmmaker says, shows a suppression of evidence. Is that what you see here, Joey?
Well, what I see is a crisis of trust and confidence. So to be clear, let's talk about the legal implications of this.
Yeah.
Will there be a new grand jury impaneled as a result of this? No. Has the case sailed? It has. Will the federal government alter its decision not to proceed with federal charges? Of course not. But at the outset of this investigation, it was all about the community's right to know, the community being involved. It was about whether Robert McCulloch, the local DA, should be handling the case or whether it should be handled by a special prosecutor.
That's right.
So why do we have the shaping of the narrative? The police say it's irrelevant. Of course it's not irrelevant. Everything is relevant because the community, obviously in being concerned about this case, wants to know all the details. Why hide this details, Kate, and why have a filmmaker, as opposed to an investigator, reveal it 2.5 years later? It's very disturbing in that regard.
To kind of just piggybacking off of what Joey said, I mean, the St. Louis County Police, they said they weren't going to confirm the authenticity of the tape, but they did tell CNN, to your point, if it did occur, this video, the incident is still irrelevant to our investigation because our department investigated the encounter between Michael Brown and Darren Wilson.
Well, let me begin by saying Michael Brown's death is always going to be an enormous tragedy for all concerned, for his family, for the community, and everybody else. But the police here are looking at this and they're saying, hey, this didn't have anything to do with what happened the day before or the evening before. It had to do with what the officer confronted on the street at the time he fired the fatal shots. And the grand jury, and by the way, it's a 13-volume piece that was released after the investigation, concluded that Darren Wilson, the police officer, fired the deadly shots in self-defense and that he acted properly. And I just wanted to add one other thing that I'm a little confused about with this. The person who was with Michael Brown that day, Dorian Johnson, actually said in his testimony that Michael Brown had committed a crime in the convenience store that day. That testimony has been publicly released in the past. So what crime did Dorian Johnson, who was actually with him, think that he committed? Obviously, maybe he was unaware himself that something had happened the night before. So I think you have to look very carefully at this film before you jump to some global conclusion that the grand jury did the wrong thing in making their decision.
I don't want to jump to that conclusion. It's not about the grand jury doing the wrong thing. It's about the police officers sharing information. Why were they quick to share that he was aggressive? Why were they quick to share he engaged in criminality? Why were they quick to share that marijuana may be involved? If you're going to tell a story, don't shape the public narrative. Tell the public what happened.
And in
don't
a community
sanitize
that's still
it.
dealing with the fallout and the crisis of confidence, this new video coming out from a filmmaker likely doesn't help that very much.
Well, you remember,
so
though, when the film was first released, they were criticized for even talking about what happened in the convenience store, the police. So this thing sort of
independent
snowballed later on.
Kate.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.